Well, we begin the next session. I will call the moderator Jean-Paul Tregen.
Hi, everyone. I will just introduce the next session about a very interesting subject, which is extreme BIM and BIM innovation. And when I was supposed to introduce this session, I was a little bit afraid about what is extreme in BIM. What is it is for BIM modeling, the complexity of the project, or it is the extreme or innovation in terms of collaboration or in terms of management. And the both presenter I will introduce now will have a big an extreme experience about these three levels of BIM. Just 2 words about Aegis, which is who I have been the BIM director for deploying BIM and tools and methods inside the group around the world, but especially for the building chapters of this company, big company. And my expertise is used in the Media Construct to manage some teams around normalization on subject. For instance, a guide for BIM execution plan for France I have taken last year. So now I will introduce Bimal Patwari, which is the chief executive, please come, of Pinnacle. You probably more detailed the goals of this big company, but the main topics we want to share with you is that Bimal is deploying BIM and extreme BIM and innovation on the field of the project. That's correct?
That's right.
Okay. So change to your presentation, please.
Thank you, Jean. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you. I'm very excited and delighted to be here. I must thank Mr. Ignacy, all the organizers, and all of you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. How many of you believe in destiny? How many of you, can you raise your hands? You don't believe in destiny? Okay. Look at my name. 50 years back, my parents named me after BIM. Autodesk was not born, Bentley was not there, computers were not there, but they were so visionary. And today, my company, we specialize in this field. And I'm very excited to be here to share my experiences with you. Today, I'm going to talk about, as Jean said, that what are the challenges in construction industry? We are going through stress. And how can we address that stress? Yesterday there were a lot of speakers who were talking about the productivity improvement in construction industry. They compared us with farming, like 1% improvement in productivity in so many decades. So what can we do to get ahead? We will talk about, in the limited time that I have, I would like to talk about some of the innovations, some of the new things that are happening in BIM, which are very exciting because we are working across the globe. So I'll try to share with you my experiences. We are currently executing BIM projects in more than 32 countries across all continents. So we have seen the best practices in different countries, and I'd be very happy. The whole theme of this summit is to share the knowledge so all of us can learn from each other and benefit. We have done more than 4,500 BIM projects. So those of you who have any doubts about this technology, you can remove those doubts. BIM works. It works very well, and it is getting compulsory. You don't have an option. Nobody is now asking why BIM. We are only asking how BIM. Okay, so this is our team. We have a global footprint. We have offices in different countries. We have got offices in India, in US, in London, Zurich, and Dubai. And we have been working in different countries. We have been delivering iconic projects. So most of our projects are more than 100,000 square meters. So they are big projects, the tallest building in the world, the largest airports, the largest malls, the largest commercial projects. So we have been working on these projects, and I would like to share today some of my experiences in these projects. Now, I said construction industry is in stress. Why? And I'm sure all of you share my concerns. First of all, the designs are becoming very complex. The architects, they are designing more and more complex. If you go to Middle East, each of the buildings have twists. They take any kind of shape you want. Any pose. Yesterday we were seeing the flamingo dance. So probably, they would design something like that. And we have to execute that. Today, any big project, you have global collaboration. You have the structural engineer from a country, MEP consultant from a different country, general contractor, fabrication, architect. Most of the projects that we do, and I've seen that in Spain especially, most of the big construction companies, 80% of their projects are outside Spain. That's what I was told yesterday. So there's a big challenge to collaborate between different entities in a project. There are multiple services. If you see an airport, if you see an hospital, if you see a mall, there are so many trades today. The security, AV, there are so many consultants. There are kitchen consultants, there are landscape consultants. So we need to coordinate all of these. Lesser ceiling space. The owners are becoming miser. They want to spend less money, and the architects are able to give us less ceiling space, and we have to work within that ceiling space. So that's another challenge. We don't have the luxury of big ceilings so that you can put everything. Wastages. My clients, they invite me to the various sites, and they say, look at the wastages. The industry standard is 10 to 15% wastages on site. And if you are making the wastage on site, it is a wastage. But if you same thing, if you do prefabrication, everything can be used. So there is no wastage on the site. So the choice is ours. Are you familiar with this photograph? So the way the traditional construction industry has been happening, so you build the block work, then you mark it, then you break it. This has to go. This is simply not acceptable anymore. This is my favorite quote, and I think this is very appropriate for BIM. It's the great Abraham Lincoln who said, if I have 6 hours to cut a tree, I would use 4 hours to sharpen my axe. Same thing with construction industry. If we have 12 months to execute a project, please spend 3 months or 4 months to plan it. Before you start construction, everything must be virtually constructed, everything must be value engineered, everything must be well coordinated, so that if there are 20 contractors on site, each of them they know the XYZ coordinate, they can work independently, there's no rework. That is what we want to achieve in BIM. So I don't want to talk more about BIM, all of you know. So BIM is basically from concept design till facilities management. It's the entire project life cycle where you want to use the BIM. I want to show you a small video to show that how the whole look at this stadium that we are doing now. in Doha, this stadium is just starting to build, but the whole planning, every day, what work will be done, where will be the site logistics, just look at this, how you're going to do your construction, everything is planned in this particular project. It's a huge new stadium that is coming up for the World Cup football in 2022 in Doha. This is the inaugural stadium. And look at the level of planning, the whole site logistics. I have reduced the total video because there is less number of time, but you see the cranes, how the cranes are going to be placed so that they don't obstruct each other. So all the site logistics also needs to be planned. So every small detail, and you can see the time here, the month progress. So every day what work will be done. So if you stop it that, okay, on 15th August 2018, where will we be on the project? You can see from this planning. So this is the level of planning that we are talking about, so that we have complete details about the project. And there is no way, the time frame is so less for this project, and you have so many stakeholders, we cannot complete this project unless we have this level of planning in our work. And the best part is, for construction management, we get all my quantities. You want to know how much concrete is going to be used tomorrow, day after tomorrow, how much steel, what will be the cash flow, how many workers will be required, how many machinery will be required. So you get all the details from this particular this type of coordination. Okay. Okay. I'm going to now talk about another project that we are doing, and as the topic suggests, that when you have such complex projects, what do you do from the normal BIM? What are the innovations you bring on? We are currently working on the tallest building that is coming up in Jeddah. It is 1.1 kilometer tall now. It shows 1 kilometer. They keep increasing the height of the building because they want to remain the tallest. They are almost 30% more than Dubai. This is going to use, the total area is 6 million square feet. There are 252 floors and 4 basements. There are 59 elevators in this project, and first time I'm going to see double-decker and triple-decker elevators. There is 105 meter, 30 floors inside the ground. So you can imagine the kind of foundation that this building has. They've spent 1/3 of the cost of the project just on the design and research and development. And this building at the top, it sways almost 10 feet, 2.6 meters on the top. It is just by the wind is so much. And you can imagine you have to do the construction, and if you want to take your pipe upstairs, up on that floor, you have no margin for error. It has to be like spacecraft. This is the progress. I keep going there. We have almost 100 people working on this project for last 3 years. We are doing the complete MEP design development and complete BIM coordination and shop drawings and facilities management for this project. I love to be there. I mean, the way this is going up. Let me show you a small video on this. Just see how this building is getting constructed. We have already done the coordination till 100th level, and they're pouring at around 55th level now. And it's slightly behind the schedule. It's going to take another 2 years, probably 2.5 years to complete the whole project, but it is amazing. And you can imagine at the 150th level, if you have to take your pipes and windows and doors, and I mean, it has to be absolutely accurate. As you can see, the core and the wings. The core is going first, and the wings follow that. And in this project, the structural engineer will not allow you to touch the walls, the core walls, because it's so critical. So if you have forgotten your sleeves, you just can't make any more sleeves. You don't even allowed to put a nail inside the columns and beams. So the coordination becomes very important. All the MEP services, everything you have to run through this whole building, and everything has to be pre-planned, because there's absolutely no way you are allowed to drill holes or even put a nail in this building. Okay, let me come out because we have shortage of time. Okay, let me quickly go. So what do we do for executing this project? So first thing is the collaboration, because you have so many design consultants, architects, owners, so many contractors. So we have created a very important collaboration, the BIM execution plan. It was very special because there is so many involvement, like we have to do the design development, we have to do and you can imagine the millions of documents generated in this whole project. For 3 years, we have been working on this, more than 100 people. So you can imagine the kind of documents. So we are using new format here. So we integrate everything. There is a cloud. Every document, every renaming, every plan is very well, have to be done for this type of project. Now, design engineering. So you have to recheck all the pump head, because the original concept design, now the requirement is changing. As the hotel owners are getting finalized, the marketing team is changing the apartments, the layouts are changing, the usage is changing. So you have to now calculate everything fresh. So what we have done is, from the Revit model, we have integrated with the various design analysis software to do this particular design. So whether it's external static pressure, pump head, air. So, for example, we are using Elite to calculate the ESP. Similarly, for dialects, now you have got a lighting requirement at every area, in the corridors, in the rooms. So we use the dialect software. Similarly, PipeNet, ETAP, and I know there are many softwares which you need to interface very intelligently with this. Now, this is another thing that I would like to show you. This is very interesting. Today, we are talking of modularization. The way we do MEP services, traditionally we have been hanging each services separately. Time has come when we combine all these services into one modules, one racks, and just hang them. Now, what are the advantages? I'll show you. There is a 10% reduction in the cost because of the economies of scale, 50 to 60% construction time reduction on the site. The productivity goes up. Now, what is modularization? Now, this is the traditional on-site fabrication. In one of the projects in US, you can see that outside there is a snow going on, and inside that building it's a hospital project. So they have got pipes on the racks, they weld it on the site, and if they cut any pipe, it is a waste. Whereas today we have to industrialize construction. We have to, yesterday the term was used, we have to make assembly lines like cars and automobiles. We need to have assembly lines for creating our MEP services, for concrete, for everything. So this is what we need to do. Let me show you. This is another very nice video. Just see this. This is the sheet metal for air conditioning, which is being cut. Now, from the BIM model, it directly goes to the CNC machine and it cuts it. And he's got the scan codes. He's putting the scan code on that, and so that on the site they can just use it. Now, how many of you are general contractors? Can you please raise your hand in this room? General contractors, MEP contractors. Okay. They should be, because this is really relevant. I don't know how much it is being used in Europe, but if you look at this, look at this sheet. It's just 2% wastage. So if I have a big sheet, and if I can, from my model, it is directly going to the CNC machine. There is no manual interface. And the machine calculates, optimizes to, from different ducts, it will optimize to cut the sheet to reduce the wastage. And everything is automated, and you can see the end product, nothing left in that particular sheet. So when you are having this fabrication, traditionally this was done, the modular, you look at this, how it is being done. So you manufacture everything in your fab shop, take on the truckload, take it to the site, and just put it inside. So it saves when you are working on busy airports, when you're working on additions, renovations in the center of the city. This is the only option that is left because there is no space for work in the city. Look at this. So everything is fabricated in your shop. So your site labor is much costlier. There are weather conditions, so you cannot do it always. But if you have done that in your shop, the quality is much better. Similarly, value engineering. When you come to BIM, we have to reduce cost. So if you look at the original design, there was 61 meters of cable tray that was used. We could reduce that to 24 meters by optimizing inside the BIM. So once you have everything on the 3D, you are able to find out better routing. The number of hangers goes down, the number of offsets goes down. So it is much easier. So these are the value engineering experiences. Now, this is what we want, the construction management, the GPS-based solutions. We have seen the site logistics, construction planning management. So we'll have the questions at the end. Thank you. My time is up. I wish I had more time to show you various case studies, but thank you very much for your patience.
Just to wait for Roberto Molinos Esparza, who is the director of BIM and automation and virtual reality in Modelicao. The main topics Roberto will develop in front of you is on top of this extreme project, BIM for innovation, for BIM, innovated BIM for extreme project. Here is more a reflection and some big subject about what are the stages of innovation through BIM. And the main topics he will develop for you is BIM as a framework for innovations, and mean on each stage of deploying BIM in a project, you should have opportunities to impact the BIM with some kind of innovations that will Roberto will develop now. And I will give you this presentation, please.
So hello, good morning. Can you hear me properly? Good morning, everyone. Thanks thanks to BIM Summit for having me here. Thanks, Jean-Paul, for the introduction. And my name is Roberto. I come from Madrid and Barcelona most of the times, and I work with a group of very talented people at Modelica. It's a small company. We do mostly BIM consultancy, BIM project development, and software development as well. I think you haven't heard anything of what I've been saying so far. Anyhow, so good morning again. So may you live in interesting times. It's one of the best things you can see anyone, but it used to be a curse, una maldición, right? Live in interesting times, because our times are always full of problems, right? Times full of problems. Who doesn't have a problem? Bimal was saying that construction is under stress. I think we've always lived in stress, and we always think that we're living in the worst of the times, the most complex of the times. And most of us, we love, or we have to solve problems, and that's why we have to innovate. And the issue is that we have to solve problems all over the world. Now, if you're a contractor, if you are an architect, if you are an engineer, you're likely to be working next door, but you're also likely to be working in Qatar, in Panama, in Colombia. So you have to compete with people all over the world. So it's not easy, right? So I'm saying we innovate because we need to solve problems. We need to apply our knowledge, our skills to solve new problems. Let's have a quick look on what kind of problems we like solving. If we were to create this kind of axis, we could split our problems into 4 main categories. This is not mine. This has been around for 10 years. It's a model from DeLong in Harvard, from Harvard, right? So you could think about problems being commodities, right? Like solving a common and simple issue, make me a house, or maybe 100 houses. You could be thinking about procedure problems, where you have to select among different options for an implementation, right? You have to select among, you have to choose, make choices, right? Then you could have gray hair problems, where experience has a strong weight on it. And then on the far right, we will have rocket science problems, right? Problems where the client has no idea what he wants, very hard to tackle, okay? The value we are providing in such different cases is different, right? It changes. We could have we need to be efficient if we want to solve commodity problems. We need to apply experience if we're going to go for the middle, and we need to have expertise if we want to do rockets. And the different skills you need to follow on your organization are going to be different as well, right? If you want to have to be efficient, you have to have the right tools, the right processes. You have to have the right knowledge management strategy. You have to be up to state-of-the-art technology, and so forth, right? And if you look at the bottom line, at the bottom row, many of those words there are very related to BIM, right? Very, very, very connected to BIM. You could speak about all of those without leaving the BIM context. So let me throw a question at you at this time in the morning. Where are you, right? The things you do, are you solving commodity problems? Are you solving gray hair problems? Are you solving rocket science problems, right? If we were to make a survey here, based on your self-assessment, this is what we get. None of you is going to say it's doing commodity problem. You know what a commodity is, right? And a commodity is something it's like water, right? You will open the tap, water will follow. You don't actually go on tender. You don't ask where the water comes from. You're not asking for its BIM implementation plan, right? You just open the water tap and it comes. It's a commodity. It's like when you ask for modelers to be sourced to your company, or you are asking for a model itself, right? It's starting to become a commodity. Right? So if we were to do a self-report here, this is what we get. No worries, it's okay. But if we look from an empirical point of view, we get some judges here looking at what we actually do, including all of us, this is what we get, right? We're most likely doing commodity work, right? Something like that is not adding too much value to our clients, to the project we're doing. And that's okay, because that's the market drift. You have to compete, you have to lower your prices, you have to lower your standards if you wanna make a living out of this. It's a market, right? For good or for bad. So how do we get ourselves back to the right, back to where we want to be? Well, of course, innovation is one of the things that will make that. But there are other ones, right? We could get skilled people, we could buy skilled companies, or we could say no to commodity work. You could say no and say, I don't want to do this. I want to focus on my rockets. I want to focus on my highly expertise, high-paying work. But at the end of the month, you have to pay you have to do the payroll. You have to pay the bills, right? So sometimes it's hard to say no to commodity work. Let's now look also at the value all this brings to the client, right? Because there are things you can do that will bring value internally, and there are things you can do that will bring value to the client. When you're doing commodity work, the client is not very worried. It's just taking for granted you will do the work. So innovation there doesn't pay very well to the client, right? It pays well internally. If you're going to innovate, the innovation when you're doing commodity work has to be for yourself. Otherwise, you're doing it wrong because somebody else will come, will underprice you, you will not get the commission, right? So innovation, when you're doing community work, has to be for yourself. But of course, when you're doing rocket science, the innovation goes to solving a big client's problem, right? Besides that, you could just provide your client with insights. So when you are not only solving the problem, but you are making them learn something new based on your experience, based on the things you can do, right? You are adding value to the client. And of course, there's always the marketing, right? I used to think marketing is a perverse thing, but it's true. You need marketing. You need to spread the message. Tell everyone, hey, this is what we're doing. We're cool, right? You want to work with us. That works well the further you go to the right, because you also have to explain better what you're doing. When you're doing commodity work, you don't need to advertise. It's not that important, right? Or it's hard to improve the message on top of that. All right. So my key point here is that BIM, as you know what BIM is, right? I see it as a huge innovation opportunity. Not only in the sense of being able to do things differently as a practice or as a sector, but also to provide new solutions to our clients. Let me give you some samples, right? Let's have a look at 5 samples, 5 levels of things we're actually doing at the office, and how they relate with what you want to do. For instance, we're going to start with automation at the bottom left. If we have to compete with companies, my company is 20 people, right? If I have to compete with the company of BIM, right, I cannot staff myself to that level. I cannot go that way because salaries are different, the regulation here is different, right? So my only option to move myself back to the right is to be more efficient, is to make less mistakes, is to be much, much faster. So fast that not even with 100 or 1,000 people you could follow me, because that has an overhead, right? So you should focus on automation, right? Automating things just to drive you from the left to the right. Then we could speak about collaboration, which is going to have a huge effect on all types of work. Well, I'll go through this, right? But basically I'm going to be focusing on 5 different areas where value is added, or application is different on these different 4 types of work. Let's start with automation. This is one project we did. We started almost three years ago. It's Al Hor Stadium in northern Qatar. It's one of the seven venues for FIFA 2022. It's a project we did with a partner in Qatar as well, and we were actually commissioned to build on top of the detailed design, CAD drawings. We were able to do a pre-construction model for just finding clashes and ensuring everything was fine. Right? I'm not going to just bore you, but we basically applied many different ways of automation. For instance, we would go to Navisworks, look for clashes, and instead of producing this massive report, I don't know if you've been lucky enough to go through one of these reports, clash reports, instead of doing that, we would just basically take or mark the items back into Revit automatically. So you could apply a filter, you could apply special views and see which elements were directly under an issue, right? We would also use spreadsheets to assign finishes to different rooms, and based on that, we will model the finishes on each one of the 2,000 rooms in the project automatically. Of course, that doesn't solve 100% of the problem, but we would solve 80% of the problem. So you need less people to do it, right? And you are making less mistakes. What this would do is it will read a room's perimeter, and then it will read an Excel spreadsheet and will just apply the walls, the thin walls for the finishes. That will be the result, okay? Then we started working in another project. This was almost 1 year ago. This is an airport. This is public. I cannot speak much because this is still under confidentiality agreements, but this is public, so you can see this, of course. And in this project, we, again, applied a lot of automation. We basically were able to model hundreds and thousands of panels, thousands of roof lights, not even touching any of them, just applying computational techniques, right? We would just move between different tools. We would use Revit, Grasshopper, something called Flax, and we would use Excel, we would use AutoCAD. We would use many things just to drive the information in the best way possible that would spare us from modeling anything by hand. If I give you a quick summary of this, right? Something we did in 2014, it would take us six months to produce that model. Of course, it was more detailed. It had all the MEP on it, right? And I'm giving you some insights there, right? We were able to model almost 3 gigabytes of Revit files, clean Revit files. But the most important metrics for us are those 8,000 warnings and 6 months of work. We were not good enough at that time, right? We would make a lousy model. It was not very good. But next time we had a big commission, because this airport is 1 million square meters, and we were commissioned to make an LOD 200 model in 4 weeks, right? And that's what we did. 7 people, we did it. And we actually focused a lot on performance, on the way on creating not only a big model, good-looking model, but also a usable model. That model is now being used by more than 50 people, which are producing the detailed design. Well, just how do we get there, right? How were we able to do this kind of work in 4 weeks? Not doing it manually, right? Not trying not to do it. We just applied automation on it. Another project, which is also very famous around, many companies working here. We were lucky enough to work with several Spanish companies, and in this case, something we did for Sener. We have some good friends with Sener here with us today. We were commissioned or asked to model 6.5 kilometers of cladding in less than a month. Actually, they were like, I mean, Revit is not good for this, right? It's not. Actually, the guy who decided to do this in Revit and the guy who decided to design the metro like that are not the same guy, of course, obviously. But by mixing different tools, by using information in the right way, we were able to produce all the cladding, or at least a preliminary version of the cladding, in 2 days, right? It would have taken us, I don't know, months to do it by hand. So that's why we didn't try it. You can see that's... Other things we do is we will apply a lot of thought on coordination. Here we are just applying, what you see is a workflow. We've been applying on the Santiago, Chile airport. We will just try to avoid coordination manually. We'll just create or find clashes between structural elements, structural walls and slabs and MEP elements, and just place dampers, place leaves automatically. You can remember BIM's image on just marking the cut on the wall, which is actually what we're doing in BIM. That is actually a coordination model, because you can exchange that model with the MEP engineer and the structural engineer. So both can speak on top of that third coordination model. And since each object has its own ID, has its own properties, you can assign them, you can review them independently. So that's also another way of applying automation to improve, right, certain workflows. You can see there the foundations of the airport. Next topic I think we need to focus on innovation, it's collaboration, right? I think we have to stop speaking about repositories and strategies and stuff, and we should look to other industries. For instance, the software industry. If software engineers were to produce software in the same way we produce models, we will be lost, right? That's because they don't worry that much about the tools they use for collaboration, because the tools take care of the collaboration itself. It's made more transparent. We've been trying to focus on change management and comparison of different models in several projects we've been doing with Sathir on construction stage. And basically, we came up with a process where you would just be able to always track the changes along the project and be able to make comparison between 2 steps of the project. It's very important, because when changes happens in BIM, you have to look for them. You can mark them up somehow, but it's hard. It's still a hard task. And I don't see any of that in PAS 1192, how do you manage changes properly, right? This is what we need. It's very lousy, but it's a code comparison tool, right? You will just get the original code, the new code, and the tool will tell you where are the differences. It will not tell you if it works or not, but it will spot the differences for you. Do we have this for BIM? Not very clear, right? So that's another space for innovation. There are algorithms, there are tools out there that are already trying to tackle this. For instance, Constru, it's one tool coming out of a engineering firm, Thornton Tomasetti, actually trying to tackle that, solve that for the structural design part. Third area of innovation is just what happens if I put all the information that describes a building available to everyone or available for all the purposes. For instance, Fernando gave us a great lecture yesterday, but this is basically the same. Let me just. Yeah, I'm running, right. Right? So you could think about the information described in this building as a service. In the same way, your Facebook feed is a service, can be used by other tools, right? So the idea behind this is that information describing the built environment could be mixed with other areas. And who's going to do that? Software engineers? Why don't we do it, right? We are the ones who are expert in the built environment. Also, business insights. This is something we did for a client, which is actually about to build a stadium. And actually, he was asking, well, I don't need a very detailed MEP model, as-built MEP model. What I need to know is if I remove this pipe, which spaces am I going to render unusable, right? So that's what we did. We modified somehow Revit. So if you notice this, if I remove this pipe, I'm serving 3 fixtures. So I will be killing those 3 rooms, right? So you are able now to do that with the model, with just a tiny programming on top. That's a business insight because you can decide, you can make business decisions based on that. Speaking about stadiums, when you have 100,000 seats on a project, on a stadium, you can do pretty good silent analysis. This is something we did for Al Hor Stadium, Khalifa Stadium in Doha. We're also doing it in other stadiums currently. Or you can actually start playing with information in a different way. You can offer your client ways of using those models in a more, let's say, more appealing or more or in a way which is closer to the daily business. Here you have a Camp Nou. This is something we've been developing. We've been doing for Barca in the last months. And you know the mosaics. You know how they make the mosaics before a match, right? They have a guy just painting colors on an AutoCAD drawing, which it could be this way, right? You could just, if you have a model, you could stamp in on it, and then you can source that to the marketing guys or to the ticketing guys and just assign the board colors directly, right? That's something you can do with a model. And who's going to invent that? A marketing guy? Why don't we do it, right? Right. And just to finalize, next thing, and this is where we are now, it's when you start getting structured information about your built environment, where you can analyze thousands of stores, thousands of branches, thousands of locations, could you start getting insights out of that and automate design, right? We're starting to see that in some areas, like the grid. It's an artificial intelligence empowered web-based or web design suite, right? Are we going to see that on architecture and engineering? Well, we are. It seems so, right? So who's going to invent that? Yes. So this is my last slide, and think about where you want to be on the spectrum here. Think about if you want to make innovation for yourself, just to be more efficient and spend less money, right? Or you think if you want to produce new services, go and speak with your client in their terms and fix their problems, or start to fix problems they don't really know they have, right? And I think BIM, it's a great opportunity to do so. We have the tools, it's a framework, it's inexpensive compared to actually building robots, something like that. And I don't know why we wouldn't do that, right? So may you live in interesting times, and thank you very much. Finish?
So thank you very much, both of you, Roberto and Bilmal. We should have a session of questions, but it's very short time.
Yeah.
So,
Por favor, preguntas.
sorry?
Questions?
Questions? So only one question for Roberto, only one question for Bimal. Anyone? No.
There's one out there.
Ah, okay. Where?
Behind the camera.
Behind the camera. Ah, okay. Please.
Hola, buenos días.
We don't hear you.
¿Funciona? Hola, buenos días.
Good morning. I was really impressed on how you use different tools to make your work going faster. And I wanted to ask you, based on my experience, every time we change the software, we change at least 20% of the information from the previous software program. So how were you able to solve these problems? I will answer in Spanish. To us, the secret is not thinking in documentation, not thinking in documents, in models. We like to think in moving information, taking the information that you want. And almost all problems nowadays allow to extract the information in a systematic way so that you can use them in another software program. So we don't really use Exchange files. We use APIs, application program interface, so we can extract information and take that to another software program, and this way we don't miss any information.
Question for Bimal? I have one. My question would be about the relation between the two presentations, how you can connect community and with the rocket science, because in fact you need a kind of labs, a kind of research parts in your company to solve problem on the field. How did that work together?
Gene, I think it's a very good question because we complement each other.
Yeah.
What Roberto is doing, he's trying to automate, find APIs, find how to speed up the process. And as he said, probably 80% of the things can be done by automation, but the finishing, the rest of the 20% where you really need the human intelligence, you need the value engineering that I was talking about. So I think there is in our organization, for example, we have a team of, we call it Center of Excellence, where they develop these applications and what Roberto is doing to speed up our process. And I think we both can, to the industry, to the BIM construction industry, both of us are equally important to take us to the next orbit in the BIM industry.
Thank you very much, both of you. I think the new eye of BIM is innovation. That's correct. That can be. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.